Hey, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Writer's Bookshelf. So today we're going to be doing another bonus episode of the Writer's Bookshelf for January 2022. And this is going to be kind of similar to what we just did with the two dictionaries. We're not doing a dictionary today, we're actually doing a thesaurus, but we're going to be doing a different type of thesaurus. So before I start on the video, we do want to just talk about what a thesaurus is good for. Because I know a lot of times when we're new writers, we just kind of break it open, see what's clever in the thesaurus, and then we might pick a random word and say, oh, that looks good, use it, because it's higher brow, it makes us look smarter and all of that. And I can tell you for not experience, I can tell you as a person who reads student papers, that when you use a word that does not match the lexicon of the rest of your whatever you're writing, whether it's an essay for the case of those that I tutor, or if it's novel, whatever, if your word choice does not measure up or match the language of your work in progress, it's going to really, I hate to use the cliche stick out like a sore thumb, but that's what it's going to do. It's really the type of effect that it has on your reader when you have just a bunch of ninth grade level words and then you have like one college level word thrown in there, even like a Harvard level word. It really does kind of hurt the integrity of your work because it makes it look like you don't know what you're doing. And it goes two ways. It does it because A, even though you're trying to look smart, it's very possible you're not using the word correctly. But B, tonally, you should know that, well, you want to stay within line of the type of language and the type of voice that you're establishing. So if you're using a thesaurus and it's either misused or clearly shows that you don't really understand what the word means, it not only does it kind of lower the integrity of your ideas, but it also poisons your voice. And remember what voice is. We did this video a few months ago now on the Writer's Digest Guide to Writing Voice. And one of the common themes of that particular book is A, you can't teach a voice, but B, you can't teach a voice because voice is something that's embedded within you. And why that's important is your voice is what really separates. It's like your fingerprint on your work. It's unique to you. No one else can really duplicate your voice. They can imitate it closely if they try really hard, but even then, it's still not your brain that they're using. It's their own brain and their interpretation of what they think you're trying to say. It's just not the same. This is why I think whenever you have, let's say, Eric Lesbader writing Jason Bourne books instead of Robert Ludlum, you're going to get a much different style of Jason Bourne book. Or there's one more recently, excuse me, sorry, Ian Colfer, or I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Ian Colfer, who wrote the Artemis Fowl series. Well, he actually did a book. He did the Sixth Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. I don't know if you know that. It's called and Another Thing is the name of the book. If you're like into that series. Well, Douglas Adams, he passed away in the 90s, and he got up through the fifth book, Mostly Harmless, and it was a very distinct style of voice and attitude and all that from the first Hitchhiker's Guide to Mostly Harmless. And the thing is, when Ian Colfer took over the role of continuing at least that particular book, I don't know if he's continuing the series today, but he definitely wrote the book 6 in the trilogy, and I got to say he did a competent job. I mean, I read the book. It was it had Thor in it. If you're into Thor, Thor's in Another Thing. But the thing is, it was definitely not Douglas Adams. Like he did a lot of what made the Hitchhiker's Guide series good, but you could just feel it's not Douglas Adams. And so the point of the voice is you want your voice to be authentic, which means you want your language to also be you. Like you can emulate, imitate, whatever, but at the end of the day, if it's not you, the reader will notice. So whenever you choose a thesaurus, you do want to make sure that you're using words that fit your voice, fit your ideas, and all of that. So this is going to bring us to today's topic. It's called Roget's Thesaurus, Words for Writers. And what this is not like an overcomplicated thesaurus. This doesn't give you, it does give you some higher brow words, but it's within reason. Okay, so what it does is it breaks it up according to certain categories, and it also depends on the word. Not every word will have every category, but if we look at like over here, we have, I just flipped to a random page, science. We got just two categories here. We've got nouns and we've got antonyms. But if you keep on reading over to secret, now you have adjectives and verbs and nouns and antonyms. So, of course, the list isn't necessarily as long, but they give you more options. And so here's an example. So for science, they give you the definition at the top. So science is, a noun. It's a body of knowledge concerned with establishing facts, principles, and methods through experimentation and study. Keyword experimentation and study. So I know we bandy the word science around a lot nowadays, and more and more it looks like we don't know what it means. And so this is telling you what it means. If you go through the word, like the category nouns and the category antonyms, you're going to have more nouns or more examples of different types of science. So you have biogenesis, which is the process of life arising from other living things. And then they even give you an example. Biogenesis involves an unending regenerative cycle of life and death. Then you go to entomology, the study of insects. Judy's little boy so loved to collect bugs from the garden that we wondered if he might grow up to study entomology. Then you have something called eustacy. I never heard of that, but now I have, just because it's there. It's a change in sea level caused by melting of ice, movement of ocean floors, or major deposits of sediment. And global warming is already triggering eustacy by melting the polar ice caps. And then it keeps on going. You have other definitions for kinesiology, morphology, nanosecond, ornithology, taxonomy, and so on. Now, obviously, it doesn't give you every science because there's hundreds of them. There's geologists, and there's geology, and there's biology, and there's all the ones you learn in high school. Weirdly enough, I don't see very many of those in here, but maybe they assume you know it, so maybe they're it's not looking for reminders of the things you should already know. I think it's the words you need to know. Specifically, it's over 2,000 emotive, evocative, descriptive, synonyms, antonyms, and related terms that every writer should know. So the idea here is they want to give you some ideas of things to explore when you're dealing with certain topics or when you're writing about a certain thing. They do give you antonyms too. So in their examples, they give you sorcery and wizardry as the antonyms. Did you know that there is an antonym to science? Well, now you know. It's wizardry and sorcery. And if you saw the new Spider-Man No Way Home, which if you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's very good. I'm not going to give away any of the details, but they have Doctor Strange is in it, and he plays a sorcerer. And then if you go back to the old Spider-Man movies and even some of the newer ones, science is a big proponent of not just Spider-Man's universe, but the MCU. And so just the very presence of Doctor Strange being there is kind of an interesting twist. And what's interesting is we learn that the MCU is kind of unique in how it's different use of character types. And that's all I'm going to say about it. If you have not seen the movie, I don't want to spoil it for you. I'm sure the internet's already done that for you, but I'm not going to contribute to that. But anyway, it's a good movie. If you haven't seen it, you should totally go see it. Anyway, but if you keep on going down to the next definition, you have secret. And so secret's an adjective and a noun. So to keep from public knowledge or something not revealed. So some examples of adjectives they give is clandestine, cryptic, incognito, and so on. If you go to nouns, you have cache, machination. There's actually the only two nouns they give you. Verbs they give you encipher. If you don't know what that means, it's to scramble or convert data into secret code prior to transmission, thereby making it impossible for unauthorized users to understand or decipher. And the other example is mathematicians were employed by the army to crack enciphered messages during the war. So I would feel like that's written like an adjective. So I would say that it's probably a better example would be to encipher messages in order to make sure people can't read it. That would have made more sense. So that particular example, I'm not sure it's of the highest quality because it does sound like an adjective. But adjectives are basically just verbs that happened. So it's fine. Antonyms, candid and overt. So candid, of course, we know that's puts everything out on the table. It's honest, outspoken, according to the dictionary there. So that's just one example of some definitions here. But like I said, each word, they have their own brand of categories. Not every category is referenced in every word, but it's nice to know that you have these different banks of ideas. So the way you use it really is you look for the main word that you do know, or you can just go in alphabetical order to see if there's anything there that you're not really aware of. But just by looking that word up, you can get the bank of all the other words. And again, they're basing it on the likelihood that it's a little more common, that it may not be common enough that you already know it, but not so uncommon that it'd be weird for you to use it. And then, of course, they give you some other words in reference to it that would also be within range of usefulness. So this is where I think if there's any book that you want on your shelf that's just something to have on quick access, I would definitely recommend it. It's, as far as reading goes, there's nothing to read. It's literally, you have a 2-page introduction right here. It's like, next page. You're on the first word. So, I mean, as far as reading content goes, it's all references, and you go into the index and you can just read what the indexes are. And the indexes do have the main words and their counterpart words. So it's a very simple book to get into, and it's a very useful one. I have it actually over my desk hutch there, next to my complete word finder. Which you should always have your thesaurus and your dictionaries together, because if you ever do come up again, in the example I gave earlier, if you're ever looking for words that you want to use and you're not sure if it fits either your voice or even if you're using it correctly, then you do want to make sure you have something on hand to look up to make sure you're using the word correctly. Because I do think that no matter what you're writing, whether it's vocabulary, ideas, whatever, you need to have some kind of writer responsibility to make sure that what goes on your page is accurate. And I know, I can tell you right now, I'm kind of lazy when it comes to that kind of research. I just like to get the creative flow on paper and then research later. Because again, for me, if I have to take the time to research before I start writing, I may not necessarily know what I want to write about. Because the ideas are usually kind of hot, and then of course I don't want to interrupt when I'm writing, because I just have a very hard time getting back into the flow. And then of course it's a little late to research when you're done, because I've actually had a novel, my first novel, my first serious novel, which I still haven't actually released yet. It's based on an IRS agent. He works for an underground organization, searching for. I'm not going to give away the plot, because I am going to go back and redo it at some point, and it's going to probably be the third in a series. But anyway, the point is one of the reasons why you haven't read it yet, or why I haven't done anything with it, is because I got to the end of the draft. I mean, it was a good draft. It was a lot of fun, very action packed. It was one of my better works. Even to this day, I'm just pretty proud of it. But the plot line doesn't work, because it took me 2.5 years to get able. I spent a long 2 years trying to get in touch with a government official at the national level in order to get my extra research that I couldn't find online, or at least to verify the research that I could find. And it took me a couple of years to finally get that call, and the efficiency of our government. And the conversation I had basically convinced me that my story wasn't going to work as it was written. Which, would have been nice to know that before I started writing it. But, when I started writing it, I was, kind of hot in the moment. I just needed to get it on paper. Now, again, the foundations are there. The construction's sound. So it's not going to be a difficult thing to fix. I just, I moved on to other things since then. So it's been kind of a difficult thing to go back and remind myself, what I wanted to do with it. And the point in that story is that, if you can research ahead of time, you should. But more importantly, you need to be able to have the ability to show that your research is credible. And if your research fails at the word level, no one's going to buy what you've written. It's, it's easy to overlook certain details. If you're trying to juggle a bunch of details, sometimes something gets slipped through. That's why, writers have beta readers and ARC readers, because they want to have that, gateway of information, or that, the reader responds to the false facts before you put to print, because you only want actual facts to get through. And if you can't be responsible enough to make sure that even your word choice works, I mean, you've already lost the battle. So it's one of the reasons why if you're going to get a thesaurus, even this one, make sure you have the dictionary on hand. But what I like about this particular thesaurus is that, I mean, they give you the definitions within. So like for quash, not only do they tell you that it's to repress or subdue completely, but they also give you definitions with the adjectives. So the defunct, version of, which is again, it's a type of quash. Defunct is an institution, object, or etc. that has ceased to exist. So practical men who believe themselves to be quite exempt from any intellectual influence are usually the slaves of some defunct economist, and that's from Jean Maynard Keynes, who's a British economist. Yeah, they even give you quotes. So, I mean, with this, you don't necessarily have to have the dictionary because they are giving you the definitions within, which again, I think is the mark of a really strong thesaurus. But if you ever do use just a basic thesaurus with all the words, and they give you the little banks, you're going to have to look it up. Because if you misuse it, I always tell my students, jogging and sprinting are faster than walking, but they're not, and they're synonyms to run. But obviously jogging and sprinting are not the same thing. So you have to know what you're doing. So I'm an advocate of increasing vocabulary, especially if you have the memory for it, which I don't have, which is why I have these books. But once you do get these books, you want to use them responsibly. The last thing I want to say before I end it for today is one of the reasons why I bought the book. I actually wasn't looking for it. I just saw it on the reference shelf at Barnes & Noble and thought, oh, that looks like it's useful. It was next to a pirate primer book that I kind of wanted to buy instead. But I figured, well, let me just get something that I can use more often than for one story. But one of the reasons why I bought it, because I have a program, some of you may have seen it, that's or seen my review on it. It's called Masterwriter, and I think Masterwriter is a good program. Again, if those of you who are watching my video review on it that I did last year, I think it's fine, but I don't like that I'm paying $8 a month to keep it when it never really updates. It's like maybe they've already maxed out the language, so maybe there's nothing else to learn. It's the kind of program I would have loved to spend $100 on one time and just had it there, always ready to access to it. But the fact that I'm paying for it every month kind of pisses me off, because I don't want to pay for it every month, because I don't feel like it's, I think I've used it 3 or 4 times since I bought it, and I've already sunk, $100 into it, over the course of a year. $8 every month for 12 months is $100, 13 months. For as much as I've used it, I don't feel like it was worth the money I spent. But, again, this is because I think, vocabulary is something you go to when, your well is dry, when you're not sure quite what to say, or if you're just looking for ideas to better say what you're thinking, which, again, is difficult to do when you're in the heat of a moment, because, when you're in the heat of the moment, you got to just get words down, even if what the word you use is stupid. Just so you can get to the end of your thought, you got to get it down. But you can always go back and, punch it up later. And that's sort of the process. What's involved is, structural fixes, but eventually you're going to get to the frosting, and make sure the frosting is on, correctly. So, I mean, vocabulary, we need to learn it. You need to learn it, the sooner you retain words, the easier it is to write them and use them. And, the easier it is to keep them accurate and to their definitions. And I do find that, I get better with age, with reading, with, what I listen to and all of that, and especially when I actually learn what the word means. But I always go back and find myself, thinking I know what a word means and then not really sure. And then just going and looking up to make sure I'm using it correctly, and discovering, no, I actually didn't. I actually used it exactly the wrong way. Like, oh, well, then I need to find a different word. It's probably, similar to what I'm thinking of, which is usually the case. So, word choice matters, having access to words matters. But again, something like Masterwriter, I do think it's a good program. The issue has never been whether or not I think it's a good program. I think it's a great program when you use it. But then the other problem I have with it is, at the end of the day, it's still basically a thesaurus. It's just like it's a digital thesaurus. And, it doesn't really give you all the information you need to know. I don't feel like it's versatile enough. So the point I'm making with all this is I wanted something that I could, in case I ever canceled my subscription, that I could have something to fall back on. So that's why I bought this book. Now, again, there's limitations. So I want to just kind of end with on the honesty of it. There are limitations. There's 2,300 emotive words and all that you should know. Well, 2,300 is a very small fraction of the English language. There's over 1 million words in the English language. So if you do your math, that's about 1% of the entire English language for a book this thick. That's crazy. So, you're not going to probably limit yourself to just this. Master Writer or some other resource is probably still a good backup to have. That's why I haven't canceled my membership. As much as I hate paying $8 a month for it. And again, just to be clear, I'm paying $8 because I got it on a sale. It's normally $10 a month. So, do your math on that. The reason why I keep it is because it does cover, the gaps in ways that other things like this book and others can't do. It's quicker access. It gives you more options. It's still ultimately, again, like I said, it's worth $100 one time. And I would absolutely have been happy with my purchase if I had spent $100 on it one time. But on a subscription level, I just don't like subscriptions, period. That's another video for another day. But at the end of the day, if you're serious about your writing, then any tool you can get access to, any book you can get access to that can help you improve it, you should totally do. So anyway, I recommend Words for Writers by Roget Thesaurus, and there are others out there. I'm not going to review all of them. I don't have all of them, and I'm not going to buy all of them. I do think that if you don't like this one, you should still at least go look and see if there's something out there that matches what you are looking for. Because at the end of the day, I think, any word bank resource you have, whether it's, the plain dictionary, and bear in mind, I'm talking like paper, like hardcover, paperback, like tangible. Because one of the things about going to Google is I think Google is a great resource for certain things. But I also think that, in the times that we're living in, when definitions keep changing on us, and to the point where they no longer make sense, you do need to have access to, the original definitions. You need to have access to, the modern definitions. Excuse me. You need to have the ability to communicate to your reader effectively, meaning you need to know what things mean and know how to use them. And understand that, with the times, ideas and definitions change, not for the better and not always for the accurate. So to have the print version, it's a good way to make sure that you're error-proofing your research. So, and again, this language is evolving. At some point, whatever the words mean today will probably end up being 20 years in the future. They're going to look back and think that those are the classic definitions. And, let's be honest, this is not Old English we're speaking. This is not Middle English we're speaking. We're speaking in more modern English. And modern English and Old English are incompatible. If somebody talks Old English to you, you're going to think they're talking Russian. You have no idea what they're saying. And that's the point is, sometimes the language will evolve so much that things just mean different things in time. So not to disparage, the digital space for definitions, but the point is even whether you're writing modern or historical or anything of that nature, you need to know what things mean. So having the hard paper versions of these tangible versions, it does put a time capsule on what things mean. But the other thing too is there's an appeal to just going and looking, because I think you're going to take it more seriously if you have it there in front of you while you're typing. You can read it easier. It's easier to comprehend. I think studies have proven that it's easier for you to comprehend the paper than it is the electronic, which is why I have a Kindle, or I don't have a Kindle. I have a tablet, but I have like the Amazon Kindle app. And I do have, I like reading nonfiction on there. I have a couple fiction books, but I don't get very far. And I usually only read them when I'm waiting, while I order food and waiting for it to arrive at my table. I don't use it very much. Which is weird because I know I write mostly ebooks, but I do that again because that's what the market's going for. But I also have paperbacks because I think people enjoy paperbacks. I like paper. I prefer paperback and even hardcover books because you just get more out of it. You get more out of the page. So once again, not to disparage ebooks, not to disparage those who want to learn electronically or even search through Google, but it's just there's a reason why these curated texts work. And I definitely think that, if you're looking for a reason to improve your writing game, these are the kinds of books you should have on your shelf. And I promise you will not be using them all the time. They will probably collect dust at some point. Depends on how you write. But it's just, again, having the resource there is important, and I have it here just in case I ever need it, and so there's no complaints. So anyway, that's the Words for Writers. Next month I'll have another word-based book, one that it's been taking me a while to read through, because it's kind of like a similar to one of these where it's not the kind of book you have to read, but there's sections in it that are readable. So I'm just trying to get myself through it. I don't probably suggest you'll want to read it all the way through. One I'm going to recommend next month. But I do think it's an important book to have, especially if you're a new writer, or even if you're a second language speaker learning English. If that's you, the book I'm going to do next month is really important. So bear that in mind. But even if you're first language speaker of English, there's still some things in there you're going to want. So anyway, come back for the February edition of the Writer's Bookshelf, and then whether or not we do March will depend on whether or not I get the book that I want to do. And the only reason why I might not do it is because there's a sequel that's coming out later in the year that I might want to do them together. So that's really where I'm kind of at right now. But either way, season 3, I started reading my season 3 slate, but I'm probably not going to start them until the summertime. So there will be probably a brief season where there's not a lot of videos coming through this channel. So if you are a subscriber, I do thank you for sticking with me this long. I mean, I will always have something to fill in, but it's not going to be very frequent until the next series of Writer's Bookshelves come out. So just keep that in mind. But I do hope that what I do bring out will be useful to you. So thank you again for all those who watch the channel. I'm actually recording this just after Christmas. So I want to say happy holidays to everyone. By the time you see this, the holidays will be over. But I hope you had a good one. I hope you had a happy new year. And, I hope that the coming year is, whatever happened in 2021, I hope the coming year is better. Just, leave a comment. Let me know if these videos are useful to you. I always appreciate hearing from commenters who respond to the videos. I just had one thanking me for, I think it was the Descriptionary. Was that the video I did? Basically, they went and looked at it and they thought it was useful. So anytime you guys leave a comment, I'm grateful, because I like to know that this stuff has helped you. So anyway, I hope that covers everything. If you have any questions, just leave a comment also for that, and don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things YouTubers tell you to do. And then as far as other channel things, I don't have a lot of plans for the next couple of months. I really need to get caught up on my writing. So if the channel is silent for a little while, I'm not gone. I'm just trying to get caught up on other projects. But we'll definitely have some new stuff to cover going into spring. So do just keep an eye on the channel. But hope you're all well. And until next time, have a good day. Thanks. Bye.